Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. The most influential Filipino of all time. I'm talking about Rizal. I know it's studied in school and in a lot of places, but have you wondered why he was so influential, not only for the Philippines, but a lot of other countries miles and miles away? This is what we're going to learn today from the Filipino history. If it's your first time on the channel, a lot of videos about Philippines, karaoke, history, and a lot of other things. You can find it over here. Let's go and take a look at this.
This man is possibly the most influential person in the entire Philippines. But José Rizal not only influenced Filipinos, but also had an impact on many people thousands of kilometers away from his homeland. But what did Rizal do exactly to gain this much influence? Why do students study his entire life from elementary to college? What did Rizal do to achieve such prominence in Philippine history that he is considered the foremost among Filipino heroes? How does one man's life impact the lives of millions of Filipinos even today? I'm Jonas, and let's talk about Dr. José Rizal. You may be thinking, oh man, Rizal na naman. José Rizal's life is literally taught in the curriculum in the Philippines, but we only usually talk about his two famous books, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. But the reason why José Rizal is a hero is not just because of these two books, but also because of the things he did outside of these two books in his short 35 years of life. His contributions were not only significant for the Philippines, but may be taken as a good example for other people as well. As we mentioned, José Rizal is a revered figure, with a number of statues in the Philippines, China, Germany, the US, Japan, and Canada. Even a monument like the one in Luneta in Spain, which we may consider the enemy of the Philippines at that time. However, Rizal's productive life was cut short at a young age of 35. José Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonso Realonda, or simply José Rizal, was born on June 19, 1861, in Calamba, Laguna, as the seventh of 11 children. His parents, Francisco Mercado and Teodora Alonso Realonda, were also educated and respected, and his family's wealth enabled Rizal to receive a top-notch education and travel abroad. Rizal belonged to the Ilustrado class, or educated and reform-minded Filipinos during the Spanish colonial rule. Even from an early age, he already demonstrated exceptional intellect. He studied at the Ateneo Municipal de Manila and later at the University of Santo Tomas. Before pursuing medical studies at the Universidad Central de Madrid, Rizal became a skilled ophthalmologist, specializing in eye surgery, which he practiced both in Manila and in Europe. Aside from his medical career, Rizal spoke over 10 languages fluently, including, of course, Spanish, then French, German, and Italian. He was also an artist and a sculptor with a keen interest in arts. Let's not forget his fencing skills. Rizal was a proficient fencer. You wouldn't want to mess with him with a sword, which is ironic because Rizal fought for the Philippines without one. Okay, so we can see that Rizal is a very interesting, smart, and highly regarded individual whom we should all look up to. But let's pause on praising him for his achievements a bit. What exactly did Rizal do that makes him a hero? Because during his time, the Philippines didn't exist yet. It was simply a concept. José Rizal's works, through his books, essays, and collaboration with other intellectuals, rippled into the creation of a national identity, making him the key figure in shaping what would become the Filipino nation. Many Filipinos owe their nationality to Rizal, whose love for the Philippines, as cheesy as it may sound, contributed to sparking a revolution. In this sense, through his efforts to foster a Filipino concept of nationalism, he is possibly the first Filipino. Let's go back to February 17, 1872, when three Filipinos...
If I'm not mistaken, in my other videos, video that I did, 15 things to do in Manila for me when I'm gonna visit the Philippines, I guess I saw a statue of him in center of Manila in a square. And that execution thing where they were the guys with the guns, and I guess it was him. And there is something in Manila with this, picture, but there are statues actually. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Priests, Fathers Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, collectively known as the Gomburza, were executed. They were accused of leading a mutiny in Cavite, but they were probably innocent and were unjustly killed. Spain used them as scapegoats and were blamed for the mutiny, essentially to scare the Filipinos. But instead, this unfair action caused anger and increased feelings of injustice among the Filipino people. At that time, José Rizal was only 10 to 11 years old, but as he grew older, the execution of the the Gomburza in 1872 had a profound impact on him that he dedicated one of his novels to these three priests. We know that Rizal is a prolific writer, and in schools, Rizal is probably known most famously for his two books, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, the latter being the book in which he honored the Gomburza's lives. These two books were fictional, but they reflected Rizal's views and experiences during the Spanish occupation. In Noli Me Tangere, or also called The Social Cancer, Rizal criticizes the Spanish colonial system, showing how corrupt and abusive the friars were. For example, Padre Damaso is a cruel friar who mistreats Crisostomo Ibarra, the main character, and Padre Salvi behaves very inappropriately towards the lead female character, Maria Clara, who is implied to be sexually assaulted many times while working as a nun in the convent. And in the sequel, El Filibusterismo, Rizal's tone becomes darker. He responds to the disappointments on the first book by showing Crisostomo Ibarra, now known as Simon, seeking change through violence. Basilio, a young boy who survived hardships and the loss of his mother and brother, grows to be a courageous revolutionary. However, the harsh Spanish friars, including Padre Camora and still Padre Salvi himself, remain central to the story. But his writings got him under the watchful eyes of the Spanish authorities, who closely monitored his growing influence among the Filipinos. Rizal took his writings a step further by writing political documents and essays. In July 3, 1892, Rizal founded the La Liga Filipina, a group with only a few but very passionate and intellectual people. It had a clear agenda to foster national consciousness and unity among Filipinos, to encourage civic engagement and advocate for significant political and social reforms. However, the La Liga Filipina didn't last long. Literally. After the creation of the La Liga Filipina, it was immediately seen as a threat. Just a few days later after its establishment, Rizal was arrested on July 7, 1892. That was just 4 days after its establishment. He was later exiled to Dapitan, a remote town in Mindanao. The Spanish authorities saw him as a very dangerous man and wanted to stop his influence. Of course, the La Liga was effectively disbanded after Rizal's exile, but 6 of its members took the initiative to create a new organization called the Kataas-Taasang Kagalang-galangang Katipunan ng mga Anak ng Bayan, or in short, Katipunan, abbreviated by 3Ks. It was co-founded by Andres Bonifacio and later led by him. The Katipunan is the organization that would eventually lead to the Philippine Revolution. But before the revolution, the Katipunan kept itself secret to avoid being apprehended by the Spanish authorities, while silently growing in strength and numbers. Meanwhile, Rizal was exiled in Dapitan. He focused on helping the local community. He set up a school for children, introduced new farming methods, built an irrigation system, and even created a water supply system. He also did his own scientific research and collected specimens. Even though he was exiled, Rizal made a positive impact on people around him. That also meant that Rizal's political influence remained to linger. Rizal's exile in Dapitan is like the calm before the storm. While Rizal lived a relatively peaceful life in Dapitan for 4 years, on June 21, 1896, one of the Katipunan's highest members, Pio Valenzuela, was sent to Dapitan to inquire about Rizal's thoughts and to seek his support and approval for joining the armed revolution against Spain. However, Valenzuela was disappointed with Rizal's response. Rizal said the people are not ready yet for a revolution and that arms and funds should be collected first. This could be interpreted with the idea of Rizal agreeing to a revolution but believing that the people were simply not ready yet. And a month after rejecting Katipunan's offer, Rizal finally had the chance to leave Dapitan for Cuba on July 30, 1896, which was granted by Governor General Ramon Blanco. Rizal had been trying for a year to volunteer in Cuba as a doctor to help fight yellow fever, as Cuba needed medical help, according to his friend Ferdinand Blumentritt. This was only Rizal's chance to finally leave his exile, because just a few days after setting sail for Cuba, the Philippine Revolution started on August 1896. Even though Rizal had refused to support the armed conflict and the Katipunan was still completely unprepared, Andres Bonifacio already led them to a violent uprising. Meanwhile, Rizal didn't know that his trip to Cuba would be his last. While he was still on the ship, the revolutionaries were already fighting back in the Philippines, and And when he arrived in Barcelona on October 6, 1896, he was immediately arrested for allegedly
Because they
conspiring
thought
with the
he
revolution,
started it.
even though he wasn't directly involved because remember, he was in Dapitan, and he was quickly sent back to Manila. Upon his return, he was imprisoned in Fort Santiago, a historic military fortress in Manila. Now, the Spanish authorities were keen to make an example of him to keep the Filipinos in place. The Spaniards set him up for a trial that he would never win. They charged him with sedition, rebellion, and conspiracy, linking him as a key figure responsible for the Philippine Revolution, just like how it was for one of his inspirations, the Gomburza back in 1872. And during the trial, the prosecution presented various documentary evidence and testimonies, and even linked his two famous books, No Limitangre and El Filibusterismo, to the revolution, stating some parallels to what's already happening. Of course, Rizal defended himself, arguing that he had no part in the armed revolt and that his advocacy had always been for peaceful reforms, but he was ultimately convicted and sentenced to death by firing squad. On December 30, 1896, José Rizal was finally silenced in Bagong Bayan, now Luneta Park in Manila, where his monument stands to this very day. However,
Like I was saying,
every hero is not without their own controversies. In the end, José Rizal's goals were centered on the recognition of Filipinos as equal citizens under the Spanish government, the lowly Indios enjoying the same rights as the superior Spaniards in Spain. However, this could mean that Rizal believed that the Philippines could be an integral part of Spain, like a province represented in their government. In the time when the brutality of the Spanish rule was painfully evident, Rizal's vision of peaceful integration could be seen as almost too idealistic. He wanted equality under the very empire that had stripped his country of its freedom. This may be seen as Rizal pledging for Spain, a Spanish Philippines, rather than advocating for independence as an independent country. Rizal's elevation to being a widely acclaimed national hero may simply be a strategy for the Americans. The same Americans who colonized the Philippines after Spain didn't want a hero who advocated for a violent revolution. They wanted someone who was safe, someone whose peaceful approach wouldn't inspire the masses to rise up against their new colonial masters. Was Rizal really our hero, or the hero that the Americans wanted us to have? Despite this, it is evident that Rizal's legacy not only exists in the Philippines, but in many places, especially those that Rizal had been to all over the world. In the next years, Rizal being taught in school helps students build a bridge between the past and the present. Because when we think about it, Rizal's experience is something that's relevant to us today as a society, and learning history and its impact in the past and how it affects us today is one of the very reasons why we study history in the first place. Are we truly understanding the lessons of the past, or are we simply repeating them?
Nice question now at the end. Wow. Yeah, Spain did awful things, we know. They wanted a scapegoat and they had it. But wow, I guess there is more. And I saw some images from a movie, I guess. Maybe it's Bonifacio movie. If there is, and if you want us to see here together on the channel, let me know down below. But yeah, beautiful history lesson like always we have here on the channel. And there are a lot that we already did and a lot to come as well. Maybe you can learn with me over here or things that you already know, but some things maybe not. Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe, let me know your thoughts down below. And I was right about the thing that I remember seeing in Manila, the execution squad and his statue over there, which I hope I'm gonna get the chance to see them really, close. Thank you for watching. Like I always say, stay safe.